Welcome to How to Garden. I'm just going to be hanging out in my nursery area. Doing a little bit of cloning. So I'm just going to be propagating a few different things here. Uh, Really all I'm doing is I'm hanging out underneath my tree. This is my nursery area, and this is my potting bench, if you want to call it a bench. It gets the job done. It's not perfect, but it works. Just remember, folks, you can have anything you want as long as you don't expect it to be perfect. I want a nursery. I have a nursery. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. Now, apparently, I lost signal for a minute. Anyway, I'm just kind of hanging out in my nursery. I'm going to be doing some propagations, a variety of different things. I'll start with this one. The more I trim this, the bushier it'll get. I can take the pieces that I trim off and make new plants. It's relatively simple. It being a succulent, it's not terribly difficult to do. A lot of times I'll create whole flats of these. I need to actually get this into a bigger pot, so I might up pot it today. In case anybody was wondering what the plant is that I'm messing with here, this is Parslane. This is a blooming Parslane. Not that common Parslane doesn't bloom, but common Parslane has little flowers like this. This has flowers like this. This is edible, although the common Parslane tastes a lot better than this does. I want to pick entirely on one side, so I need to turn it around. That's enough for now. All I'm really doing is I'm taking the leaves off. Now you can actually propagate this plant just from the leaves, but I prefer a stem. All right, now it's time to move on to the next plant. This is night blooming jasmine. I took the cuttings on this just a few weeks ago. It's doing really, really well. These will be up for sale probably about a month. But I need to work on doing another edible at the moment. This is Cuban oregano. It's not oregano. It's not really from Cuba, but that's what we call it locally. The leaves make a fantastic herb. Basically substitute it anywhere you would oregano. You can use them fresh, chop them up in salads. I myself am particularly fond of chopping them up, drying them up, and then using the dehydrated leaves. They keep a couple of years without any issue if you dehydrate them. I don't like that leaf. Basically, you get a stem like this and you bury it. And it'll grow. See, this one here has already got roots going on it because it was touching the ground. Means it'll be pretty easy. I've got a fairly large one in the pot, about 6 feet over there. And that's my mother plant. I need to get a couple more in that size range so that I can increase the amount of these that I can make per year. I've got a fairly large one up in the front of the property I can take from too. Now, this is really good at keeping away mosquitoes and biting flies. So it's a really nice one to have floating around in your yard. I want to get some of it planted over by my mosquitoes to help keep the mosquitoes down over there. And I also want to get some rosemary over there. So I got a double benefit when I'm cloning these because I take all these leaves and I go ahead and I dry them. They go in my kitchen, and that's actually a decent amount. Now, once it's dehydrated, that won't be very much, but it goes a long way. This is how I've been trying to spend my evenings lately, is just sitting out here propagating, stockpiling plants, because I'll be opening a nursery here not too far in the distant future. It'll be for locals only to start off with until I build up. I'm going to have to shorten that one. There we go. Now, pieces like this that I even stripped the leaves off will often grow. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it in a pot too. All right, well, that's 3 more of those. So really only took a few minutes. I got these here, and almost 100% of those will take, and 100% of these will take. I need to get a solid dozen of these, but I don't want to take too much off the mother plant at once. And I need to get them into a bigger pot. The mother plant is a clone of my old mother plant that accidentally got run over by a lawnmower. So here's my mulberry that I just did a few weeks ago. A lot of them took. I won't take any of them out until I have roots coming out of the bottom. This is the night blooming jasmine, and it's doing really well. This is called turtle weed. This is a dwarf wandering Jew. More mulberries. So there's the mother plant of the Cuban oregano. I got a fun one here. This is a star fruit tree. It's for myself. Right here is some Jamaican allspice. At least one's going to take. I expected that to be relatively low take rate, so that's no big deal there. Once I have a mother plant of it, then it's not going to be as much of an issue. Oh, I'm building up cactuses and aloes over here. I need to actually pop about a dozen cactuses or aloes out of the ground. Of course, I've got my cannas. I popped a couple of those out of the ground because I want to start a new colony somewhere else. There's my baby bunny. So this is a fun plant, and I'll be cloning it here real soon. This is Arabian jasmine. This is true jasmine. The smell on this stuff is fantastic. Strangely enough, I found it at a Lowe's. Hadn't seen true jasmine in years. Like years and years. Only out of personal private collections. Man, that smells good. Now, these are supposed to clone pretty easy. I cloned some when I was working in someone else's nursery a couple of times. It didn't seem particularly difficult. So this will definitely be one that I'll be cloning here in the near future. Hey, Patty. Oh, this was actually meant to get up there on that lattice. And I did not know that I had a semi-dwarf variety because it wasn't labeled. It will never get any taller than that. But that's okay. That's just fine. I at least have true jasmine. I've got a couple other jasmines, but they're not true jasmine. They just call them jasmine because they smell similar. This is my new peach tree. This is a replacement for the one the hurricane blew down last year. I'm not going without peaches. I've got to have my peaches. Oh. That's where my nursery is. In lieu of being able to have a nice building, I grew a tree. That's just all there is to it. One tree. Several tables. I'm about to put two more tables in. So that'll be my nursery area for the really little ones. And then over here next to my old ice cream truck, behind my big box shed trailer. Believe it or not, that's one really large trailer. Right in here where I've been keeping construction supplies for years, I'm going to put a small shade house. And that'll be my shade house for larger plants, my little nursery, and then anything in the cactus or aloes can be out in the open. And that'll be my starter set for my nursery. The state inspector is supposed to be out sometime next week. He hasn't confirmed the day yet. He said he'd get back to me today, and I haven't heard anything. So, with any luck at all, I'll get this rusty old Ford out of here. Believe it or not, this thing runs. Just the bodies fell apart. And such is the hazard of living in a saltwater environment, because I'm only a few miles from the coast. Man, my chair is way back there. I don't like it back that far. Let's get this thing back in its holder. This holder isn't the best holder in the world, but what do you want for $5? Whoops, lost some people there. All right, so what I'm presently doing is building up a stock supply of plants that I'll be able to offer to the general public. I'll be a certified nursery in about a week. They got to come out and inspect the nursery, make sure that I'm not selling anything that is illegal or evasive, things like that. And, I don't have the best setup. I've got what I can make work, but it's something to start with. So every night, if the weather's good, I'm going to be coming out here and hanging out in the nursery, propagating a few things. And I don't really need to propagate a lot to get this started, but I need to be able to set it so that, like the things that I'm propagating now that are fruit trees, are far enough along that I can have them out of this area come this fall, when I'm going to have to go into production for things like tomatoes, cucumbers, and your common vegetables, and see if I can sell those. And of course, I'll be planting all of that too. Another project that I need to get going, although I'm a couple parts away from being able to actually get going, is some hydroponic systems. Next year, I'm hoping to be able to go out to the local farmers markets with my plants and with fresh fruit and vegetables from my garden, as more or less a side thing. I'm not expecting to make tremendous amounts of money doing this. I just want to be able to take the money that I'm making from that and put it back into this and build it into something that is at least sustainable. Because as it is now, even though I'm probably the thriftiest gardener on the planet, I still spend a lot of money doing this. So I really need to have some type of income from it just to make it sustaining. That way I'm not dipping into things like saying, oh, I need 10 yards of dirt and I gotta buy it because I can't get any for free at that particular time. Because it's happened. I can get a lot of things like that free if you watch and you look at local markets and you kind of learn things. But, I think it was like 2 years ago, I needed at least a reasonable amount of new soil to come in and add to my beds. And there was nothing available. And I ended up spending like $300 to have some dropped off here. That price is not acceptable. But yeah, I definitely do a lot of recycle and reuse. Actually, I had a friend of mine's mother who used to run a nursery and presently runs a hydroponic tomato farm, give me a whole bunch of her old nursery stuff this year. So that's going to be a big help. I've got a whole bunch of 1-inch round seed trays, like probably the most I've ever had at one time, and maybe 10,000 4-inch pots. That's going to be a big help because these don't eat up a lot of soil, and I can up pot from there into an appropriate size. But I can clone a lot of things with these pots. I'm probably going to need some more tables. I'm going to have to trim this tree out and kind of make it expand outward so that it covers more area. But I got to get this Ford out of here. Once I get this old Ford out of here, I was thinking about putting in a small greenhouse. Of course, this being Florida, I'm going to need to have shade too, and that'll be a great help. I've also managed to get my hands on a whole bunch of various pieces of hydroponics. So I just need a couple things to kind of tie it all together. Like I've only got one pump. I need at least three. Five would be better. I got a hold of a battery bank just this week, but I only have one solar panel. I need a few more of those because I don't want to have any of that tied into my household electric. That needs to be something that's not drawing off of that system. It's also got to be strong enough to take a hit from at least a class 2 hurricane, which means I'm going to have to overbuild. I'm going to have to make things really, really strong because we get hit here on a regular basis. Patty, I've done hydroponics on and off for a long time. I kind of have my own design thing that I build them out of gutters, house gutters. One of the hardest things I had was mastering the chemistry element of it. Not because I couldn't understand the chemistry, but because I couldn't actually find information. Everybody was always just trying to sell me something instead of giving me the information I need. A friend of mine was kind enough, who his family has done hydroponics since 1984, was kind enough to actually give me a crash course over the last 2 years on exactly how it works. So I'm now competent on being able to not only keep the chemistry right, but be able to make my own other than what he has taught me. Because now I mostly understand the chemistry. I know how to test it, I know how to regulate it, and that type of stuff. See, one of the biggest problems I had with that, with my old system that I had a little over a decade ago, which I had running on my back porch, I had a really, really large back porch. It was 32 foot long. And I had 9 lines of gutter running back and forth attached to a gutter at the roof so that rainwater would fill it up. That was my mistake. I could not get that water to balance, could not keep the chemistry, because every time it rained, it washed it out. So I need to be able to build something similar, but not tie it into a rain thing. Maybe have something else to collect the rainwater, and then be able to test the rainwater, balance the rainwater, then move it over and put in the correct nutrients. The nutrients really is not complicated. It's 15 different nutrients that you need, and you need to balance it out. But it actually comes out to only be like 7 naturally occurring salts, because I'm going to want it organic. I don't want chemical. So instead of buying the chemical version, I'm going to use naturally occurring salts. And then once I get that fully mastered, I'll move on to doing things such as being able to balance out fish emulsions and seaweed emulsions to do almost the same thing. But I don't quite have that down yet. I will. I've been able to figure out just about everything, what type of seaweed, what type of fish emulsion, down and in what concentrations, except for one thing, is I can't seem to balance out the magnesium. And I'm probably going to end up using Epsom salt, since that's a naturally occurring salt. I use fish a lot in my garden in general. I might have a small fishing addiction, just a small one, and it does pretty good. I make my own fish emulsion, which is actually part of the problem with being able to go hydroponic with it. Is now I'm going to have to test every single batch of fish emulsion I make and start to balance, or as consistent as if I bought fish emulsion. I also make my own seaweed emulsion, and I'm using local seaweed to do it. However, it would probably be better if I actually bought some dried seaweed from various different places. Like kale might, or not kale, but kelp. Kelp might be my solution for the magnesium problem. Kelp doesn't grow in these waters, so I'm not 100% sure. I've done a little bit of research on it, and apparently it does contain a higher amount of magnesium than some. If there's a lot of seaweed that washed up on shore, I just fill the buckets up, I bring them home, I add water to it, I put a top on it, and I sit it over the side of my fence, and I'll get back to it in 6 months to a year, and it'll be just this beautiful stuff. I generally don't do the aquaponics, mostly because I'm in Florida and I'd have to do it outside. If I could do it inside and I could control the water temperature better, I would. But here, the water in the tanks gets really hot, and it's not just the fish that suffer, the plants will suffer too. See, once you get your water temperatures in the 80s, all types of things grow in there. It kills fish, and it kills the plants, and you end up with all types of funguses and weird slimes and just stuff that doesn't work. Now, there are fish I can put in there that would adapt to that. We have tilapia in our waterways, which are not native. They were introduced here, and they can handle that type of water. No problem, Patty. But I really, maybe one day if I move further up north, I'll do something like that. But unless I put a water cooler into the system so I can keep the water below 80 degrees, it would just be fighting doom. I would be not only have to balance the fish tanks, which anybody who's kept fish tanks knows that can be a pain to balance your fish tanks, but I would also have to balance the plant nutrients and the water temperatures and the pH, and they don't all mesh all that well once you start getting into the higher temperatures. It's a lot easier to do if you can keep your water temperatures below 80. But I get water temperatures here in the 90s in the summer. You know, it's hot. And you get all types of weird stuff. So I'd have to put in a water cooler that'd require power, and that'd just be a pain in the butt. But I can do hydroponics, and I'm not going to be running a lot of the stuff that I would want to run in the hydroponics in the summer here anyway. I'm going to be wanting to run those during the winter because I'm going to want to do lettuce production and maybe some herbs, kale, maybe some pak choi, although I do pak choi in the ground really well here, so I might not even do that. But then I can do other things like watercress, which is a high dollar herb plant that I can sell at the market. So that's the type of stuff I'm looking to be able to grow in the hydroponics. And lettuce just does fantastic in hydroponics, and the growth rate on it is fantastic. So I can plant something about this big in the hydroponic systems where I work, and in 60 days I've got a head of lettuce. Now we do a lot of leaf lettuce, not head lettuce, but it'll just be gone in no time at all. And at $5 a head at the base rate, that adds up quick. So I definitely need to get those in. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I generally try to keep these fairly short, but I am losing my light fast. And judging by what I'm seeing, real fast. But there's one thing left I want to show you. And that's this thing, this cactus of mine that has just been phenomenal this year. Normally I get 2 blooms out of it, once in the spring and once around midsummer. It has been blooming continuously for 6 weeks. Look at those. They're just starting to open. It's a night bloomer. When they're fully open, they're the size of a dinner plate. It's going to give me another good show. The bees love it. The bees really love it. I have two different types of bats in the area, and they come in at night and they drink the pollen out of there. And I like having the bats around. They help keep the mosquitoes down. So I've got one bat that primarily eats mosquitoes and one bat that is a fruit bat. Both of them will come to this cactus and drink. So it's fantastic. Y'all have a good night. And Patty, thank you so much for coming in. I greatly appreciate it. You have a great day.